What's up, everybody? I am Mongoose. You are awesome, and welcome to another rare episode of Your Goose is Cooked. Today we'll be making a full steak dinner with a T-bone steak, asparagus, and this fake risotto shit that is fucking amazing. So why a steak dinner? Well, steak is a lot like your mom. It's super easy and the entire neighborhood enjoys it. If you're looking to impress someone, drop some cash on a good cut of beef, put in like zero effort, and make them think you're a culinary master. First off, let's set our steak out and allow it to come to room temperature before cooking. Steak is easy as hell to make, so the biggest part of this process is choosing the right one. Your best bet is to go with a T-bone. Either a T-bone or a porterhouse if you really want to drop some cash. You get tenderloin on one side and a strip on the other. One cut and you get great flavor from the strip and a buttery texture from the tenderloin. You're looking for a steak with good marbling. That's the lattice work of white you see going through the meat. That's fat. That's good. I'll go ahead and season this with a bit of salt on both sides. I usually wait to add pepper because pepper can get bitter if it burns. Now we'll start on the fake mushroom risotto, or fucking risotto, as Gordon Ramsay likes to call it. I'm not making the real deal because it actually is pretty difficult to make. Instead, I'll show you how to make this alternative that's good enough to steal the spotlight from the steak. Start by slicing up some shrooms. I'm using baby bellas here. The only reason I'm using the brown ones is because they look good on camera. The white ones are cheaper and are exactly the same. Throw some butter in a pot on medium-low heat and toss your mushrooms in there. Stir them up occasionally so they cook evenly. Throw some salt in to season and assist in sweating the moisture out of the mushrooms. When they start to change color, go ahead and pull them out. Set them aside for later. Doesn't matter if they're cooked through or not because they'll finish cooking in the sauce. Now it's time for the rice. Use whatever kind of rice you want. Hell, you can use fucking instant rice for all I care. But if you do use some regular ass rice, it's normally a 1-to-2 ratio. 1 cup of rice needs 2 cups of water. Add the rice and water to the pot and crank it up to high. If you still have mushroom bits floating around in there, then all the better. It'll give the rice a little mushroom hit. Stir this occasionally until the rice comes to a boil. As soon as it starts boiling, turn the heat all the way off to its lowest setting, cover the rice up, and walk the fuck away for 20 minutes. Don't come back and check on it every 5 minutes. Don't flip out if it boils over a bit. Just leave it the fuck alone. Rice is really easy, but people screw it up constantly by going back and like checking on it and letting all the steam out, and they end up with like some undercooked grains and ugh. How do you screw up rice? I don't know, but people do. While the rice is cooking, let's prep the asparagus. People love to tell you that asparagus makes your pee smell funny, which makes me wonder why the fuck people are smelling their own urine often enough to know when it smells off. Anyway, to prep the asparagus, you need to break off the bottom part of the stem. Eating this part is like chewing on a stick. Asparagus will break off clean, you just need to find its breaking point. The asparagus I have here isn't great. I can tell because it breaks up high on the stalk. It'll taste fine, but I can't help but feel a little ripped off here. The rice is done, so let's go ahead and pull it out. Give it a taste to make sure it's fully cooked. Now it's time to make the sauce for the fake risotto. Much like the sauce we made for the pasta dish, we'll start with flour and butter. This time I'm only going to use about a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of flour. You're looking for a nice granular consistency, as always. This here is a little too dry, so I'm going to add a little beef broth. That's a little better. Go ahead and slowly add 1.5 cups of beef broth. Add it in stages while whisking this together to make sure the butter and flour mixture, that's called a roux, is fully incorporated into the beef broth. I'm not looking to make this nearly as thick as the pasta sauce, so if it looks too thin at this stage, you're probably okay. We just want this to be thick enough to coat the back of a spoon. I want this to have an onion flavor, but I don't want chunks of onion in it, so I'm going to add a few shakes of onion powder. I'll also add margarine because it's what I do. Toss your mushrooms back in and turn the heat up to high. Bring the mixture to a boil and then lower the temperature again. Keep stirring and checking the consistency. If it's too thin, cook it longer. If it's too thick, add a little more broth. Now it's time for the main event. Get your cast iron skillet out and turn the heat up to medium-high. Let the entire pan get nice and hot. Once again, if you don't have a cast iron skillet, you can use an inferior pan, but you will get inferior results. My pan here is very well seasoned, so I can put this steak in dry without the fear of it sticking. You may want to put a little olive oil on the steak prior to putting it in the pan if you have a newer cast iron or you're using some bullshit stainless steel. Let the steak cook for about 2 minutes before flipping and cooking for another 2 minutes. You want a nice brown crust on both sides. Flip it again and put it in a 400-degree oven for 15 minutes. This will give you a rare steak. If you want medium rare, leave it in for another 10. If you like your steak well done, you can leave it in for a total of 45 minutes. And then have your mommy come and cut it up into little bite-sized pieces so you can dip them in ketchup, you fucking child. I actually only left this steak in for about 10 minutes because I like mine very rare. Once it's done, set the steak aside to let it rest. Cutting into it now will result in you losing all of the juices. A quick trick that will take this steak from ridiculous to ridiculous is to put a pat of butter on top while it rests. It'll melt into the meat and be just wonderful. We already have a nice hot pan full of steaky goodness to cook the asparagus in. Keep the heat going at about medium heat and toss them in. Add a little salt and cook them for about 5 minutes. Flip them around occasionally so they cook evenly, and if you're not sure they're done, just try one and see. Let's finish off the fake risotto by putting the rice we cooked into the pan with the sauce. Stir it all up so the rice is evenly coated. Now it's time to plate it all up. I personally prefer to just eat my steak right off the bone, but if you want to get it all fancy with it, you can cut the meat off the bone, slice it along the bias, and mix the two cuts together. Spoon on a generous portion of the fake risotto, make sure you got some good mushroom chunks in there, toss some asparagus on the side, and you're good to go. If you want to church this shit up a bit, you can squeeze a bit of lemon juice over the asparagus to brighten the entire dish up, and shred some Parmesan cheese over the risotto. I wouldn't use any other cheese than Parmesan or Asiago, as they both have a nutty flavor that complements the earthiness of the mushrooms. Now it's time to dig in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and always remember, if you're out there and you're hungry, you can go eat a dick. Man, Goose.